Welcome to Lifespan Lab. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly forgotten why you went there? Or opened a kitchen cabinet and stood there wondering what you were looking for? Maybe you searched for a word you've known your entire life, only to find that it simply wouldn't come to you. And maybe, just maybe, a small voice in the back of your mind asks a frightening question. What if this isn't normal aging? What if it's something more serious? If you've ever had that thought, you're not alone. In fact, millions of adults over 60 ask themselves the same question every year. And the reason is simple. Most people have never been taught the difference between normal age-related memory changes and the early warning signs of dementia. As a result, many spend years worrying unnecessarily. Others ignore symptoms they should be paying attention to. Today, we're going to clear up that confusion. We're going to look at 5 signs that seem very similar on the surface, but are actually very different once you know what to look for. And stay with me until the end, because I put together a simple one-page summary of everything we'll cover today. I'll show it on screen before we finish, so you can take a screenshot and save it for future reference. Now here's the most important idea in today's video. Normal aging may slow memory. Dementia begins to interfere with daily life. Everything we're about to discuss comes back to that single difference. Let's begin with a sign that worries people most. Memory. Have you ever met someone you've known for years and suddenly forgotten their name? You recognize their face immediately. You know exactly who they are. You may even remember where you met them, but the name itself just won't appear. Hours later, while taking a walk or making dinner, it suddenly comes back. Does that sound familiar? Researchers have been studying this phenomenon for decades, and they've consistently found that occasional difficulty retrieving information becomes more common with age. The memory often still exists. The brain simply needs more time to access it. In simple terms, the information hasn't disappeared. The pathway leading to it has become a little slower. Most people assume this means their memory is failing, but that's not what specialists usually worry about. What concerns doctors is something very different. A person repeatedly asking the same question. A person forgetting conversations that happened minutes earlier. A person looking at a familiar relative and struggling to recognize who they are. The difference isn't forgetting. Everyone forgets. The difference is whether new memories are being formed properly. So here's a simple question. Do you eventually remember? If the answer is yes, that's often a reassuring sign. But memory is only part of the story. And what happens with everyday objects may tell us even more. Have you ever spent 20 minutes looking for your glasses only to discover they were on top of your head? Most people laugh because they've done exactly that. You retrace your steps. You think back through your day. You reconstruct what happened. Eventually, you find the missing item. The object was misplaced, but your ability to reason through situation remained intact. Now, here's where things become different. Researchers have observed that people developing dementia often place objects in locations that make absolutely no sense. Car keys in the freezer, a wallet inside a shoe, television remotes hidden in kitchen cupboards. And when asked how the object got there, they genuinely don't know. Sometimes they even believe someone has stolen it. Many families misinterpret this as stubbornness, but researchers believe the brain is trying to explain a gap it can no longer account for. The warning sign isn't losing something. The warning sign is losing the ability to reconstruct what happened. And what comes next surprises many people, because the third sign has very little to do with memory at all. It has to do with learning, or more specifically, the difference between learning something new and forgetting something you've done your entire life. Let's continue with a sign that often confuses both older adults and their families. Learning. Have you ever needed someone to explain a smartphone feature more than once? Have you ever looked at a new television remote and thought, why does this thing have so many buttons? You're alone. Many people experience exactly this frustration. And the good news is that researchers have consistently found that healthy older adults remain capable of learning throughout life. The process may take longer. It may require more repetition, but the ability to learn remains. Most people assume difficulty learning new technology is a sign their brain is failing, but that's not the whole story. In fact, specialists are often far more interested in something completely different. Difficulty performing familiar tasks. A person who has cooked the same meal for 20 years suddenly becomes confused halfway through. Someone who has paid household bills for decades can no longer organize basic finances. A driver becomes lost on the road after they have traveled hundreds of times. The problem isn't learning something new. The problem is losing access to something that was once automatic. And that's a very important distinction. Now, let's talk about judgment, because this is another sign many people overlook. Have you ever made a purchase you later regretted? Of course, everyone has. Making occasional mistakes is part of being human. But researchers have found that dementia can affect judgment in ways that become increasingly obvious over time. Falling for scams repeatedly, giving away large sums of money without understanding the consequences, ignoring obvious risks that would once have seemed clear. Family members often notice these changes before the person experiencing them does. And that brings us to the fifth sign, the one most people completely miss: changes in personality. Have you ever noticed that poor sleep can make you irritable, or that stress can make you seem less patient? Those changes are normal, but dementia can create something deeper. A warm and social person may gradually withdraw. Someone who once loved family gatherings may lose interest completely. A trusting individual may become unusually suspicious. Researchers have repeatedly observed these patterns in the early stages of cognitive decline. And for many families, these behavioral changes appear long before diagnosis is ever made. Now here's the part one hope you'll remember most. Many people spend years monitoring every forgotten word, every misplaced object, every mental slip. They become frightened. They begin doubting themselves. Some even avoid conversations because they're afraid they'll forget something. But what we've learned today is that forgetting occasionally does not mean you're losing yourself. Normal aging changes how the brain works. Dementia changes how a person functions in daily life. That's the difference. Before we finish, here are 4 simple recommendations. Stay physically active. Protect your sleep. Remain socially connected. And if changes become progressive or begin interfering with everyday life, speak with a healthcare professional. Before we finish, here's the one-page summary I promised. Take a screenshot now and save it for future reference. Forget a name, but remember it later. Usually normal aging. Forget familiar people. Potential warning sign. Misplace objects, but eventually find them. Usually normal aging. Place objects in illogical locations. Potential warning sign. Need longer to learn new skills. Usually normal aging. Struggle with familiar routines. Potential warning sign. Occasional poor decisions. Normal human behavior. Progressive decline in judgment. Warning sign. Temporary mood changes. Normal. Persistent personality changes. Warning sign. And remember the most important takeaway. Normal aging may slow memory. Dementia begins to interfere with everyday life. If you found today's video helpful, Make sure to subscribe to Lifespan Lab. We publish new videos every week covering healthy aging, nutrition, longevity, and the latest research that can help you stay healthier as you get older. And if you'd like to discover another important health insight, watch the next video on your screen now. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay proactive, and take care of your health.